Hello and welcome. Every year we get together with family and friends in the fall to make wine. It's a fun activity we all enjoy. In this video, we'll show you some simple steps to follow to help you make your own wine at home. And we'll offer tips and advice to make the process easy and successful. Most winemaking involves fermenting fruit juice. You can get juice by purchasing a wine kit or by purchasing a bucket of juice that's ready to ferment. You can also crush fresh fruit, which is what we're doing. You test the juice and, if possible, adjust it as needed. Then add yeast, which ferments or converts the juice into wine. Once fermentation is complete, you transfer the wine to barrels or bottles to allow it to clear and age. Before you start, everything that touches your wine needs to be sanitized. Most home winemakers use potassium metabisulfite when making wine. A small amount added to the wine will help preserve it without affecting the flavor. When mixed with water, the liquid and fumes are good for sanitizing equipment. But it is caustic, so you should always wear a mask and gloves when handling it. These are the steps involved in sanitizing equipment. This is rinsing, using water to remove any loose particles. And this is washing, using a soap product to clean inside and outside. Finally, the equipment is rinsed or wiped with a strong sanitizing solution, in this case potassium metabisulfite dissolved in water. We're using a crusher destemmer to get the juice from these grapes. All crushers, whether large or small, work in a similar manner. The fruit is loaded at the top, and the paddles pull the fruit through the crush wheels. The juice in crushed skins exits through a chute. To make white wine, we collected the crushed skins and juice in buckets. Then we separated the juice from the skins using a wine press. When making white wine, you only want to ferment the juice. You don't want the skins. If you don't have access to a press, a large colander will do the job. We'll show the features of the wine press later in this video. Once we've collected the white wine juice, we test it to see if it needs any adjustments. Our first test is always to see how much sugar is in the juice. We use a glass hydrometer to measure sugar content. If it's too low, we can add table sugar. If it's too high, we may need to dilute the juice with water. Once adjusted, we place it in the refrigerator overnight. This drops out some of the solids before we start fermenting. The next day, we transfer it to a large bottle called a carboy and place it in the cellar. Before starting fermentation, we add 1/4 teaspoon of potassium metabisulfite to each 5 gallons of juice. This kills off any bacteria and wild yeasts. We add cultured yeast and place a fermentation lock on top. The lock lets the fermenting gases escape without letting anything bad get into the juice while it's converting into wine. The bottle is placed in the cellar because it's cooler there, and we want to ferment at about 60 degrees. It's a slow fermentation process that may take as much as 3 or 4 weeks. To make red wine, we crush the grapes the same as we do with the whites, but we don't separate the skins from the juice at this time. Instead, juice and skins go into a fermentation tub. This is kept in a warm area because we want to ferment at a higher temperature than we ferment the whites. Like the whites, the juice is tested for sugar content. We also test our wines for pH, acidity, and sulfur content. There are different ways to measure these. We use this tester. If you don't have access to testing equipment, you can still make good wine. For kits and buckets of juice, you may not need this equipment. At this point, the skins and juice are called the must. Before starting fermentation, we add 1/4 teaspoon of potassium metabisulfite to each 5 gallons of juice. This kills off any bacteria and wild yeasts. To begin fermentation, pour the yeast mixture on top. We cover the top of the tub with a grating covered with cheesecloth. The grating lets the air in, the cheesecloth keeps the fruit flies out. We constructed a tent to cover the must if the weather turns cold. We can place a small heater underneath to help maintain fermentation temperature. We usually ferment reds at somewhere between 70 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Once fermentation starts, we punch down the top of the must once or twice daily. This pushes the skins back into the juice and also keeps bacteria from growing on the surface. We use a potato masher. We check the temperature of the must daily so that we can adjust it if we need to. If the temperature is too low, we turn on that heater. If it's too high, we put bottles of frozen water into the must to lower the temperature. To get juice from the must to do our measurements, we use a strainer and a baster. As the must ferments, it starts to smell more like wine and less like juice. Here we're using a glass hydrometer to check the alcohol content. We do this daily, and we record the readings we get to help us follow the fermentation process. The fermentation takes between 7 and 10 days, and we'll know we're finished when the hydrometer shows very little sugar content. When we think we're near the end of fermentation, we assemble the wine press. Once fermentation is complete, the wine is transferred from the fermentation vat to the wine press. The wine is separated from the skins and flows into the buckets. The skins are pressed lightly to get some extra wine. The wine in the buckets is transferred to large glass bottles in the cellar, called carboys. The bottles are filled to almost capacity and then fitted with a fermentation lock. The red wine has joined the white wine in the cellar. Periodically, it'll get transferred from this bottle to another bottle to leave behind the sediment and to help it clear. The white wine is still fermenting, and when it's done, it will go through the same process. Once they're both complete, they'll be bottled. Thanks for watching. If you like these videos, why not subscribe?